What's up, everybody? It's your boy Brandon B, back for another week with That Sports Podcast. Thanks for stopping by, checking out the podcast. First up, I want to talk about the Nets being down 2-0 to Boston. I don't think the Nets are going to survive this playoff series. I know it's still kind of early. They're 2 games in and stuff like that, but it looks like Boston has a pretty good game plan for the Nets, and it's to shut down Kevin Durant. That's as much as talent as Kyrie is supposed to have. He's not going to be the guy who carries the Nets to win this series. It's not going to happen. That has to be Kevin Durant. It has to be Kevin Durant. And I saw this coming. Because Kevin Durant is a game changer. And as much as Kyrie Irving is a good basketball player, he's just not the guy who's carrying teams through through to the playoffs and the championships and stuff like that, right? Like, that's not happening. It's the same thing that happened out in LA. They were expecting LeBron to carry all those superstars to the playoffs and stuff like that, and it didn't happen. And the reason it didn't happen is because Kyrie and LeBron, in my opinion, aren't the guys that you want to carry your franchise into the playoffs. They're not those guys. They're not about that life. Every time they won a championship, they were riding with some other superstar or something like that. I think Kyrie hasn't won a title since he won 1 or 2 with LeBron, however many he won with LeBron. I understand he had some success with Boston, a little bit of success with Boston. They made it to the playoffs and everything like that. He blames Giannis for his injury and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, they're not the guys. They are not the guys. Kevin Durant is the guy that you want to carry your team. No matter if you have a bunch of superstars like Kyrie and Harden and stuff like that, Kevin Durant was the centerpiece to that team. We saw it early on in the season when Kevin Durant was carrying the team to all their victories and stuff like that. Him and Harden were playing well and they were winning games. Then Kevin Durant got hurt, and then the Nets were looking at almost being out of the playoffs. And that was because Kevin Durant was hurt. Even with Kyrie back, the team was still struggling to win games. They were still struggling to to keep teams from taking leads or jumping out to big leads and stuff like that. They weren't able to overcome. Kevin Durant comes back, they start turning things around. Kevin Durant is the X factor out in Brooklyn. And Boston has figured out a way to shut that shit down. So now it's going to be up to Steve Nash to try and figure out what he's going to do, because I don't really believe Boston has the depth to really make a fighting comeback. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't see it. They don't have Golden State's roster. They don't have the Suns roster. They have Kyrie and they have Kevin Durant. And I know they got some other people out there playing with them and stuff like that, but those are the 2 guys who are supposed to carry this team to a championship. Those are the 2 guys who are supposed to be winning and stuff like that. And right now, their style of play just ain't getting the job done. What they've got going right now just ain't getting the job done. And I don't see them overcoming Boston. And like I said, I know the series is still early, and yeah, they could come back and win this, or they could make it competitive and stuff like that. I think they go home for the next 2 games. So, they could win 2 at home and stuff like that, but I don't see it. I do not see it. Anyway, I was looking for some topics, and I came across this baseball clip. I don't know if you guys saw it. It's a Texas junior college baseball player. He was a pitcher, and the guy had just hit a home run off of him, and he's doing his little, trot around the bases and stuff like that. And as he's rounding third, he's like, I want to say no less than 10 feet away from third. The pitcher just beelines it straight to him and lays him out. It was like straight up football tackle. Stretch dude out. They were both laying on the ground. The teams came out to brawl. They had to call the game. It was complete and utter madness. And first of all, that shit was funny as hell. Okay, I'm not gonna sit here and say that shit wasn't funny. Don't do that type of shit. That has no place in baseball. In football, you can lay a hit on somebody legally good. But don't do none of that illegal petty shit and stuff like that. He hit a home run. It was fair play. I understand that you're frustrated. It might have been a big game. I don't know what the circumstances were that led up to him stretching that guy out. But there's no place for that in football. Or I mean in baseball, right? Like there's no place for illegal play in any sports. But nonetheless, it was hilarious. It was hilarious to see. I mean, he really laid the guy out. It looked like one of those Lawrence Taylor era hits. But, the team ended up suspending him for 4 games. Not the team, but the league ended up suspending him for 4 games. The team said that he's no longer playing. And to me, that's the right course of action. If that's your reaction to losing, then you don't need to be involved. Right? Like, no, that type of stuff needs to be stopped. It needs to be nipped in the bud early, because we have people in the pros that kids look up to. They're role models and stuff like that. It's like Kyrie out here flipping the bird to fans and stuff like that. Like, these people have impressionable eyes on them. And this is the type of stuff that happens. And I understand that people might say, oh, it was a one-off. That stuff doesn't happen very often. But there are people who are poor sports simply because they've seen other people do it. That other people have done it and gotten away with it and stuff like that. And that's why it trickles down. That's why it happens. People talk trash and all that kind of stuff. Like, there's all types of stuff that goes on in sports that people don't necessarily see all the time and hear all the time. But when you get to that, if you can't just ignore it and stop your teammates from doing it and stuff like that, and you get to a point where you got to level somebody on a plan, like, illegally and everything, like, to me, that just, you don't need to be playing. You need to be going and finding out why you got to that point, or why you lost so much, why it made you lose control so much that you had to actually go out and physically harm somebody or do some cheating shit. And until you figure that out, you don't need to be part of none of this. Whether it's anger management classes, maybe you need to seek therapy, maybe you need to, maybe you've got some family issues going on and things like that need to be alleviated. Maybe you're just having a bad day. I don't know, but there are better ways to handle that shit, right? Like, I played sports in high school, and I will tell you, my first year playing soccer, 2 things sucked about it. Number 1, I was pissed off because I was academically ineligible to play because my grades were bad. So all I could do was show up to practice. And secondly, my team wasn't very good. So I was sitting on the sidelines watching my team get beat. And then I got to see these kids, our rival team on Friday nights, out hanging out and stuff like that. And they're talking trash and running their mouths about how they're better than us and everything like that. And they beat us every time they play us and everything. Like, I've been there. I've been in those games where we're just getting dogged. I've been in those games where I've had those guys who try to bully me and stuff like that and get in my head and talk trash, play a little bit rough and everything like that. It's like, fine, if that's how you want to play the game, we can play the game like that, bro. I'm not going to sit here and engage in the shit talking. But if you want to get physical, we can get physical. Start throwing a little more body into some of those slide tackles and stuff like that. When I'm jockeying for the ball and everything like that and shielding the ball, maybe get a little more shoulder in there and everything. Start digging some elbows and some ribs and shit, like, on corner kicks, bumping up against somebody right before the ball's kicked and everything like that. You know what I mean? Like, you want to get physical, we can get physical, bro. But I'm not going to get to a point where I'm just going to explode and everything like that. You know what I mean? I'm going to be doing a little ticky-tack shit they doing. I'm going to see how they like it. You like digging your elbow in my ribs when we're on those free kicks and shit like that? You jumping up in the air and then just happen to hit me in my fucking rib every single time? All right, I got you, dog. I'm going to get you in your rib right before you get me in mine. We'll play that game. Ref calls me. But I guarantee you, we're gonna play that physical style that you want to play. Anyway, Mike Tyson punched a guy on a flight. I saw the video on TMZ. It was definitely Mike Tyson. And if you haven't seen the video, look it up. It's out there. Mike Tyson is on a flight, and this dude is sitting behind him. And the dude is real hyped that Mike Tyson is sitting in front of him, right? And I'm not upset at the fact that the dude was hype, right? Like, I would be a little stoked to be behind Mike Tyson. I'd be like, yo, what's up, Mike? Can I shake your hand, take a picture and shit like that? Like, you know what I mean? And I'd be cool about it. But I wouldn't be overly fanboy about it. You know what I mean? Because he's a human being like I am. He's just trying to get on this flight, get to where he got to go and shit like that. Nobody really enjoys traveling to a point where they like being on these long-ass flights in a cramped airplane and stuff like that. Like, even if you're riding in first class, you still would rather be in your own home or, you know, chilling doing something else than being on this long-ass flight. You get off that flight, you're all tired and everything like that. The first thing you want to do is go fucking take a shower and everything. Like, I understand all of that. I understand all that mindset. I've traveled a lot. I traveled a lot growing up as a kid, right? Every 3 years we were moving around somewhere. It was the life of a military kid. So I understand the long flights and everything like that. And as fun as traveling was, traveling was fucking exhausting. You were just looking to get to where you wanted to go, especially if you had multiple flights. I went from Arizona to New York. Then we flew to Italy, right? Like, that was my flight path to get to Italy. That's a lot of flying. By the time I was in Italy, I was exhausted. It was exciting and everything like that, but I was fucking tired. I just wanted to get some sleep. Being on that cramped plane, I wanted a hot shower. I wanted to stretch out in a bed, not be cramped up on a plane or sitting in some chair and everything like that. Like, I understand it. So I understand Mike's mindset when he met this guy, right? But Mike was cool. He was cool. He chatted with the dude. I think he let him take a selfie with him and everything like that. And, you know, the interaction keeps going on and on and on and stuff. But then I guess it got to a point where Tyson was like, hey, yo, chill. Now, I don't know if they edited it because there are parts of it where it cuts out and then it picks back up. So I don't know if Tyson told him to chill or whatever, but like, supposedly Tyson told him to chill, was like, chill out, bro. And he wouldn't, so Tyson just got up and went, wah, wah, wah. Dude had the nerve to be looking all sad and shit like that. And it's like, look, I don't condone what Mike Tyson did, right? I really don't. Like, it's unfortunate that he's had another incident that could tarnish his reputation, right? His public image. It's not right. It's not right to just still off on people. Especially when you're bigger than they are, you're a professional fighter, like, you got to show a little bit more restraint. But at the same time, he did ask homeboy to chill. So I can only be so mad. Right? Like, I can only blame Mike Tyson so much. Like, 50% of the blame is on him. And another reason I can't only blame Mike Tyson but so much is because he was cool with the dude at first. It was the dude who wouldn't stop. He asked homeboy to stop. He said, hey, chill. Like I said, I don't know because I don't know if that was actually what happened because, like, sometimes they cut the feed right there and then it picked back up at another point. But at the end of the day, he asked homeboy to stop. Somebody asked you to stop, just fucking stop. Especially somebody who's a pro fighter. Somebody who can whoop your ass. Like, he asked you, Mike Tyson looked at me and just said, move. Which way do you need me to go? Anyway, so Tyson Fury is set to fight Dillian Whyte this weekend. This is a huge heavyweight fight, and it's possibly Tyson Fury's last fight. Tyson Fury is a great boxer for all intents and purposes. Like, he's one of the greatest boxers of our generation, right? Like, he's a big time guy. He beat Deontay Wilder. I mean, he's beaten a lot of big names and stuff like that. And the question here, though, is he in shape enough to beat Dillian Whyte? Some of those pictures that are coming out about him, fighting and everything. I mean, he's never looked like he's in top peak physical condition anyway, right? Like, I've never seen him in like lean, muscular mode, right? Like, but he's a big guy. He's a big guy, and he knows his body. But right now, from some of the pictures I've seen, he does not look like he's in fighting shape. And the reason that's a big question is because if Dillian Whyte can manage to take this into the later rounds and Tyson Fury isn't in the best of shape, I mean, this fight could easily slide in Dillian Whyte's direction. Right? Like, I could see Dillian Whyte getting a knockout in the later rounds if Tyson Fury's out of shape. He's sucking wind and everything like that. Dillian Whyte catches him while he's trying to catch his breath. He's just trying to get that deep inhale in so he can fire off that combination, and Dillian Whyte cocks him one. You know what I mean? Like, that's one of those scenarios where you go out. especially if he catches you in the body and you're trying to take a breath in. He catches you with a good body shot. That's really going to knock the wind out of you. And then he throws another punch, another punch behind it. That's a combo right there, boy. That'll put you out. That'll drop somebody. So, I mean, it's a huge fight. And, Tyson Fury says that he wants to retire. Now, I'm not saying I don't believe him, but I'm not going to say I do believe him either, because he's saying he's going to retire after this fight because he can live without boxing. But if he loses this fight, can he walk away? Can he walk away? I mean, what else does the man have to prove? This is his last title defense, and I'm sure he wants to go out on a high. I'm sure he wants to ride off in the sunset with his head held high, no losses and everything like that. But at the end of the day, it could happen. Dylan White could win this fight if he's not in fighting shape. And like I said, Tyson Fury knows his body. He's been doing this a long time and stuff like that. He knows, how to prepare for his matches and stuff like that. But, at the end of the day, some people get a little too complacent. I think that's why a lot of the UFC champions were coming and going for a while and stuff like that, because a lot of these guys got complacent. They get to the top and then they come into their next fight and they're not as hungry. They're like, I don't have anything else left to prove. But it's like, if you're the champion, you have the most to prove. You have to prove you're the champion. Every single time you go out into the ring, you have to prove you're champion. Right? Like, being a one-time champ is great. Being a two-time champ is great. But being able to have like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 title defenses and stuff like that, that's what makes these great champions. That's why Anderson Silva is one of the greatest of all time. A lot of those guys, they went out there every single fight like it was their last fight, and they were ready to put people out. Anderson Silva, he knocked out Forrest Griffin easily. He made Rich Franklin look like a chump. I mean, and let's Rich Franklin was one of my favorite fighters back in the day. I hated Anderson Silva after he beat Rich Franklin like that. I was like, what the fuck? That was just disrespectful. I always respected Anderson Silva for his game. But like I said, some of these champions, they come and they go. And Tyson Fury could be one of those champions that might end up, walking away with his last fight being an L. Who knows? So, I don't want to sound callous about Dwayne Haskins dying, right? But I do have a lot of questions in regards to his death. And the reason I didn't really comment about it or speak on it earlier when it first happened and everything like that was because there wasn't a lot of information, there wasn't a lot of detail, and I wanted to know before sounding ignorant or saying anything. But something I don't understand is why he was walking along the side of the highway. I don't understand it. And here's why. So, the biggest reason I wanted to wait was to understand why he might have been walking along the side of the highway. Like that was the biggest piece of information I needed. And apparently his wife let it be known that she talked to him that day and he was going to find some gas. Apparently his car had run out of gas and he was on the side of the road and decided he was going to get out and go walk along the freeway to go find a gas station. And at some point, he decided he was going to cross over and got hit. She was calling the police down there trying to find out what happened to him because he never called her back and everything like that. And so the reason I have questions is because with all of his money, all of his resources, the car he was driving didn't have like OnStar, or he didn't have like AAA, no car insurance, nobody he could call. I mean, why was it a good idea to get out and walk along the highway, the freeway, whatever it was? I don't even like walking across crosswalks because I've seen people blow through stoplights. I've almost been hit. And I'm not going to be like, oh, it was a near miss. No, like, this dude was not paying attention. I had the right of way to walk across the street because the fucking walk light was on and he wasn't paying attention, and he just starts coming to make his turn. And as I notice him trying to make his turn and he notices me, I stop walking. I didn't stop in front of his car. I stopped right before I got into the lane where he was coming in. I was like, nope, I'm stopping, and I started to back up a little bit. Then he slams on his brakes and everything like that, and then I was like, and he let me go across. My head is constantly on a swivel, even when I'm going through crosswalks. So to walk along the side of the highway, that makes zero sense to me. I was living out in Italy when there was this kid that was in, I think it was like in the 8th or 9th grade, and he got hit by a transfer truck crossing 4 lanes of traffic, busy ass highway, trying to go get a pack of fucking cigarettes. Don't walk along the side of the highway. Make sure you have a phone charger in your car so that way if your phone never dies. Let people know where you're going. To me, it just didn't make any sense to be walking along the side of the highway. I mean, hell, he has enough money to make sure that his car has the latest technology on it. Like I said, OnStar, some sort of service, right? And then he's got a cell phone. With all that money, he didn't have and he was on the phone with his wife. So why didn't he call somebody? Hell, he could have had an Uber come pick him up from his exact fucking location, drive him directly to a gas station, and then give him a ride directly back. Give him a ride directly to and from. All that money, all those resources. There was no better option than to get out of the car and go walk along the side of the highway. I don't understand it. I do not understand it. I don't even like having to pull off on the side of the highway because people do not pay attention. Something that's weird about the whole scenario, something that's really weird about the whole scenario, though, is that Dwayne Haskins' parents are not attending the funeral at all. And from what I read, they're saying they don't want to go because they never met his wife before, and they don't want to be the first time they meet her to be at the funeral. It makes no sense to me. That makes zero sense to me. I don't understand why that's even a statement that they would make. I mean, their son just died. He's young, 24, was in the NFL and stuff like that, and the reason they're not going to the funeral is because they never met his wife before, and they don't want the first time for them to meet is to be at the funeral. I don't understand that. There has to be more to that story. That's an interesting point to me. I mean, and like I said, Dwayne Haskins dying is sad, and and I'm not trying to be callous about the situation. I guess what I want is to make sure that people understand. Don't walk alongside the fucking highway. Look, buy yourself a little car charger. Make sure you buy a car charger, put it in your car, and never take it out. So that way your phone is never dead. You can always call somebody. I understand that might be inconvenient or it might cost you some money and shit like that, but what's a little bit of money versus the chance of not losing your life? You know what I'm saying? Like, walking along the highway is a dangerous proposition, so please don't do it. Just make sure you're prepared for any scenario by having a car charger. That alleviates a lot of the guesswork in those types of situations, okay? And I understand maybe your car battery dies or something like that. Make sure you have like one of the little the battery stick things in there so you can charge your phone. Just make sure you always have a way to charge your phone is the point of that, okay? And make sure you're making the best choices out there because no one wants to end up like that. And like I said, it's sad that he's gone and everything, and I'm not trying to be callous about it. He's got family, friends, loved ones, and stuff like that who this is really going to affect and stuff. And and my thoughts are with them and everything. And I hope that they can become whole or somewhat whole after this and stuff like that, and move on with their lives and not be too damaged by it and everything, because death affects people a lot. Some people a lot, and it can change people's lives. And I just hope that everybody involved can recover and gain some peace or some sort of solace or some sort of comfort after the fact, and be okay with the rest of their lives. And realize that just because he's gone, it doesn't mean that their life has to be just solely about that. Like, loss is loss. Anyway, So, Russian tennis star Andrei Rublev says Wimbledon ban illogical and discriminatory. So, I was surprised. I didn't even hear about this. Russian and Belarusian players are banned from Wimbledon because of the war on Ukraine, and I'm not completely sorry that they're banned. Like, I understand that it might seem like it's not fair, but at the end of the day, how many of them are actually speaking out about what's going on in Ukraine? And I'm not saying I've looked it up. I'm literally asking, like, how many of them are saying we don't condone this, and how many of them are, saying we do not support what they're doing, you know what I mean? Like, we stand with Ukraine. Like, how many of those people are actually saying that and everything, that to a point where it would make me feel comfortable allowing them to come play, right? Like, I mean, if you're pro what's going on in Ukraine right now, like, there are ways to solve conflict that don't involve mass killing people. War is never a good thing. And so, if these players aren't making it known that, that they're not part, that they don't support it and stuff like that, like, I don't have a problem with them being banned. I don't. Because how do you think the Ukrainian players feel, the Ukrainian tennis players feel right now? How do you think the Ukrainian people feel right now? You feel if these Russian players feel like they're being discriminated against and that their ban is illogical, how do you think that they feel about Russia invading their country and being bombed and killed and murdered and stuff like that, and just not being able to live safely and humanely and stuff? Like, they're having to go through a lot just to be able to survive from day to day, right? Like, never knowing when a bomb is going to drop or when soldiers are going to invade and stuff. And like, if these Russian tennis players feel like that, imagine how the Ukrainian people feel right now. And it's like, I get it. It seems unfair. It seems like, oh, they're against me and this, that, and the third. I don't even care about it. Then say that. Say you understand why the ban is going on and you do not support what's going on, and maybe that you do not support what's going on in Ukraine and stuff like that. And, maybe they'll lift your ban and let you play. I mean, like I said, if they had banned us after we had invaded in Afghanistan and Iraq, when we went into the Middle East and stuff like that, if they had banned us from the Olympics and all that shit, I'd be like, well, it's the price of doing business, because we all knew that them going over to the Middle East wasn't nothing but about oil. They wanted to keep control of the region. They wanted to make sure the regime that was friendliest to the American government was going to be in charge. They didn't actually give a shit about the people over there and the democracy and shit like that. They just wanted to keep control of the interest. They wanted the interest to sway U.S. favor. You'll never convince me otherwise. Like I said, war is never a good thing. It is not something to condone or anything like that. Like, even if we go to war over a just reason, like, for instance, Pearl Harbor, if something like that were to happen, I still would not be sitting here saying this is good for our country, this is good, we're good on us. No, there's nothing good about that shit. There is absolutely nothing good about it. It leads to a massive loss of life when all it would take is a conversation and coming to some fucking common understanding. But we as human beings have such large egos that, we can't see outside of ourselves sometimes. We can't see outside of what we believe and what we think and our own opinions and everything like that. And, sometimes you got to do that. Sometimes you got to think about the good of everyone and not just the good of who you think you're trying to protect or whatever ideals you have in your head and stuff. Sometimes you got to compromise. Anyway, last thing, That Sports Podcast t-shirts are now available on my website. You can check out the website. You can check out my Twitter page, my Facebook page, my Instagram page. You can go on there and click on my link tree and then click on the merch shop. It'll take you straight over to the website, and then you go to clothing and you can find That Sports Podcast tees. I have them in black and gray. Once I find a cheaper vendor, I will try to bring the price down. I would like to get my own printing press and be able to print them here myself. That way I could bring the cost all the way down. All I would need is to buy the t-shirts and stuff like that to purchase them. To send them out to do that, and then I pay for shipping to mail them out, so then I can get those price points down up under like $30 and stuff. But until that time comes, they're right around, I think, like $45 or something like that. They're available all the way from small to 4XL. They're done through custom ink. I like them. They're great. They just have the logo there. So yeah, go check it out. Help support the podcast. Thanks for watching. That is my episode. Don't forget to check out my other podcast and follow me on my social media pages. Not That Sports Podcast, XYZ Talk Radio, the podcast. I always do that shit anyway. Catch me next time, guys. Peace.